Before dawn touched Jerusalem's walls, a single voice thundered across the silence, bold, defiant, and carrying a message powerful enough to shake an entire kingdom. Every heart behind those gates paused, caught between fear and disbelief, as if the city itself held its breath, waiting for what would come next. The streets lay still, narrow alleys cloaked in shadows, rooftops empty yet heavy with anticipation. Far beyond the walls, a figure stood firm, every word measured, every movement deliberate. His presence alone demanded attention, challenging centuries of tradition, courage, and faith. Inside the city, whispers stirred, families leaned closer to listen. Soldiers tightened grips on their weapons, and leaders exchanged tense glances. A moment hung between them, suspended, fragile, uncertain, where a single declaration could unravel hope or ignite it. And yet, amid the tension and mounting dread, no one could have imagined the day's conclusion. By nightfall, a story would unfold that would echo through generations, a tale of faith tested, courage rewarded, and a city saved by forces far beyond human understanding. Jerusalem rises from the hills, a city carved from stone and steeped in centuries of faith, its walls strong but fragile against the tides of history. The year is 701 BC, and the Assyrian Empire, the most feared military force the world has ever seen, has advanced across the lands. Cities fall in flames, kingdoms surrender or vanish, and entire nations whisper in terror of the conqueror's approach. Inside these walls, life continues with quiet urgency. Traders ready their stalls, families offer prayers at dawn, soldiers pace along ramparts, and King Hezekiah surveys the city from his palace. He knows the stakes. Jerusalem stands alone. If the walls fall, the people, their traditions, their very lives are at the mercy of an empire that has never known mercy. Every eye beyond the gates is turned toward the horizon, watching the advancing banners of Assyria, their symbols etched with power, cruelty, and victory. Assyria's reputation is unmatched: armies that crush rebellion, engineers who dismantle fortifications with ease, and messengers whose words strike fear faster than the sword. Their presence is a shadow stretching across the land, an unstoppable force bending every city it touches to its will. And yet, Jerusalem is different. Its walls may be fewer than those of distant cities, its soldiers less in number, but within its gates, a faith endures that has never been defeated. It is this faith that the approaching voice intends to challenge. A voice sent to break courage before the first sword is drawn. And this is the story of that voice, the words that threatened an entire kingdom, and the answer that would silence an empire forever. Across the plains of Judah, a shadow stretches farther than the eye can see. The Assyrian war machine moves with terrifying precision, ironclad chariots rolling over hills, thousands of soldiers marching in calculated rhythm, banners snapping in the wind, carrying the insignia of an empire that has never met resistance it could not crush. Villages along the way are abandoned, smoke rising where defiance once lingered, and terrified families whisper stories of entire cities laid to waste, of kings captured and kingdoms dissolved into ash. The sound of marching is more than noise. It is a warning, a pulse felt in every heartbeat, reverberating through Jerusalem before a single messenger arrives. Children cling to parents, elders murmur prayers, and even the strongest warriors feel a tremor of doubt. Every rumor of Assyria's ruthless conquests fuels a creeping dread. The empire does not negotiate, it eradicates. Within Jerusalem's walls, King Hezekiah moves among his people, a figure of calm amid the rising tension. Known for his devotion to God and his determined reforms, he has restored the temple, purified the altars, and guided his people back to their covenant. Hezekiah is not just a king of stone and gold, he is a leader whose faith inspires courage. Yet even his confidence carries a shadow. Years earlier, he had defied Assyria's dominance, declaring loyalty to God rather than to the empire's king. Now, the consequences of that choice loom over him like a gathering storm. He consults with his advisors, inspecting the walls, the gates, and the city's defenses, each inspection revealing both strength and vulnerability. Behind the measured calm, his heart beats with uncertainty, for he knows that faith alone cannot halt the approach of an army famed for overwhelming force. Far to the north, Sennacherib, the king of the Assyrian Empire, surveys his victories with unshakable pride. Cities have fallen before him, kings have bowed, armies crushed, and histories rewritten by his campaigns. His confidence is absolute, his ambition boundless. The news of Jerusalem reaches him like a puzzle demanding to be solved. Why does this small city resist? What makes it different from the others? After careful consideration, he decides not to march immediately into battle. Instead, he chooses a more calculated approach, one that has succeeded countless times before. He will send a voice ahead of his army, a messenger who can crack the walls of courage without lifting a sword. And for this mission, he entrusts one man, a figure whose words are as sharp and deadly as the blades of his soldiers. Rabshakeh steps onto the stage of history, a man whose reputation precedes him. As chief officer and spokesman of the Assyrian army, he has mastered the art of persuasion and intimidation. While soldiers storm cities, he bends hearts and minds, for he understands a profound truth. Words can destroy courage faster than any sword, and fear can crumble walls more surely than siege engines. He is deliberate in every motion, measured in every word. His eyes scan the horizon as he prepares to deliver a message designed not merely to demand surrender, but to strip away hope, leaving the city hollow with despair. Jerusalem has never faced a test like this before, and on this day, Rabshakeh carries a voice meant to shatter not only walls, but the very spirit of a people. Every step he takes, every glance he casts, is calculated to build dread. And within the city, no one yet knows that their endurance, their faith, and their courage will be tested in ways that will echo for generations to come. The dust rose long before the people saw them. A faint trembling rolled through the ground, not enough to cause panic, but enough to let every heart know something heavy was coming. Down the road leading from the Assyrian posts, a column of soldiers appeared, disciplined, armored, moving with the cold precision that had crushed nation after nation. The sun glinted off their iron helmets like flashes of fire. Behind them walked the man the world feared not for his sword, but for his voice, Rabshakeh. He did not hurry. He walked as though he owned the road beneath him, as though Jerusalem was already his. On the rooftops, families gathered in tight clusters. Mothers pulled their children close. Men leaned forward, their jaws set, pretending bravery they didn't feel. Whispered questions floated through the alleys. Is that him, the one who speaks for the king of Assyria? What will he say to us? The closer the Assyrian convoy came, the quieter the city became. Doors creaked shut. Market stalls paused. Even the wind seemed to lower its voice. This was not an army on the attack. It was an army delivering a message. And that made the moment even more chilling. Inside the palace, word rushed to King Hezekiah. Rabshakeh is here. Hezekiah did not go himself, but he sent the men he trusted most. Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, the palace administrator, steady and calm, but with worry creasing his brow. Shebna, the secretary, nervous yet determined not to show it. Joah, the recorder, quiet, observant, the one tasked with capturing every word spoken that day. They stepped out of the palace and began their walk to the city's outer reach. Their footsteps echoed in the narrow streets as crowds parted to give them room. From the walls, the citizens watched the three men ascend the slope, their robes fluttering gently in the dry wind. Beside the Assyrian entourage, the three seemed small, like three candles facing a storm. Rabshakeh noticed them approach. He smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a man who believed he was already victorious. Rabshakeh halted his procession at a very specific place, the upper pool on the road to the washer's field. A strange choice to modern ears, but to Jerusalem, it was symbolic, strategic, and terrifying all at once. The upper pool was one of the city's primary water sources. Water was life. If Assyria controlled the water, they controlled the city without lifting a sword. And this location, this was the exact same spot where, years earlier, the prophet Isaiah had confronted King Ahaz, warning him to trust in God rather than alliances with powerful nations. Now, The cycle repeated. History stood in the same place, but this time the voices were different. Rooftops around the pool filled with citizens leaning forward, trying to catch every word. Soldiers on the walls gripped their spears tighter. The air was so still that even the ripple of the water sounded loud. The setting was public, intentionally public. Rabshakeh wanted the whole city to hear him. He wanted the words to sink deeper than any arrow. The two groups faced one another. Behind Rabshakeh stood ranks of Assyrian soldiers, motionless like statues carved from iron. Behind Hezekiah's delegation stood only the stones of Jerusalem, old, weathered, and faithful. A hawk screeched overhead. Then the sound faded. Silence, heavy as stone, settled over the pool. Eliakim swallowed hard. Shebna's hands trembled slightly, though he hid them in his sleeves. Joah tightened his grip on his writing tablet, ready to record every syllable. Rabshakeh stepped forward, his sandals pressed into the dust. He lifted his chin slowly, scanning the walls packed with anxious faces. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew this city was afraid. He knew fear could break walls faster than battering rams. Then, a breath, a pause, a stillness so sharp it felt like the moment before a thunderstorm. And Rabshakeh opened his mouth. The words that followed would test the faith of an entire nation. For a moment, Rabshakeh simply looked at the three officials. Then he breathed in slow, deliberate, and let his voice roll out over the water. "Tell Hezekiah." The words echoed against the stone walls, carried by the wind into every open window of Jerusalem. "What confidence is this in which you trust?" His tone wasn't loud, it was sharp, a tone that pierced more than it projected, a tone designed to make hearts shrink inside chests. He took a few steps forward, hands clasped behind his back. "Do you think mere words are enough for war, for strategy, for strength?" A murmur rippled across the walls. Citizens leaned closer. Rabshakeh turned slightly, addressing the unseen crowds above him. "Look at your alliances. You lean on Egypt, a broken reed that pierces the hand of anyone who trusts it." His arms snapped to the side, as if pointing toward a distant, crumbling empire. "And as for your king..." He paused, letting the silence sharpen the moment. "He tells you that your God will save you. He tells you to trust in him." He tilted his head, mocking confusion. "But where is this strength he promised? Where is this deliverance? Where is your hope?" He didn't shout. He cut each sentence, landing like a hammer blow. Eliakim's jaw tightened. Shebna's shoulders stiffened. Joah's stylus trembled above his tablet. The people on the rooftops whispered in fear because Rabshakeh was saying the things they were afraid to say aloud. His challenge wasn't just to Hezekiah, it was to everyone who heard him. Rabshakeh inhaled, his expression changing now, more confident, more cruel. "You say, 'We trust in the Lord our God.'" He let the words linger. But did not Hezekiah himself tear down his high places, his altars, the places where your people worshipped? A collective gasp rose from the walls. Some of the people looked at each other, unsure, confused, shaken. Rabshakeh saw their reaction and pressed deeper. "Your king angered your own God. He destroyed what your fathers built. And now, he claims this same God will save you?" He spread his arms theatrically, like a storyteller performing before an audience. "People of Judah, hear me well." His tone lowered, almost conspiratorial. "It was the Lord himself who sent me." The words hit the crowd like a sudden drop of cold water. "Your God told me, go up against this land and destroy it." For the first time, the soldiers on the walls shifted nervously. Was it true? Had God abandoned them? Had he turned against Jerusalem? Rabshakeh's genius was not in his army, but in this. He understood fear wrapped in spiritual doubt is the strongest weapon of all. He planted a seed of uncertainty, a seed capable of shaking an entire city from the inside. Eliakim couldn't take it anymore. He stepped forward, lowering his voice so that only Rabshakeh and the front guards could hear. "Please," he said, "speak to us in Aramaic. We understand it well. Do not speak in Hebrew, not in the hearing of these people on the wall." It was a desperate request, a plea to contain the panic spreading across Jerusalem's rooftops. But Rabshakeh's smirk widened. He tilted his head, almost amused. Why? His voice rose again, deliberately switching back to Hebrew, even louder than before. Do you think my master sent me to speak only to your king and his officials? He stepped closer to the wall, shouting now directly to the citizens above. No, I speak to the people who will suffer, who will endure the siege, who will pay the price of Hezekiah's stubbornness. His words carried like thunder. The people backed away from the ledges. Mothers clutched their children. Men pressed trembling hands against the cold stone of the wall. Rabshakeh wanted them to hear every syllable. He wanted panic to spread through the city like fire. And it was working. The wind died. The sky seemed to hold its breath. Rabshakeh's voice lowered, not soft, but deadly calm. People of Jerusalem, listen to me. He paused, letting the tension stretch almost to the breaking point. Do not let Hezekiah deceive you. He cannot save you. Do not let him make you trust in the Lord. He lifted one hand, a gesture slow and calculated. If you surrender, you will live. You will eat from your own vines. You will drink from your own wells. You will enjoy peace. Then his voice shifted, colder than stone, sharper than iron. But if you resist, he looked up directly at the families watching from the walls. We will come upon this city like a storm. No nation has stopped us. No God has rescued them. And your God will not stop us either. He raised his voice to its peak, the climax of the confrontation. His final words struck Jerusalem like a blow. Choose life under Assyria or destruction under Hezekiah. A shudder rippled across the city. Hearts raced, faces drained of color. Rabshakeh stood there, unblinking, as if daring anyone to answer him. And for a long, heavy moment, Jerusalem froze. The tension reached its highest point. The moment Rabshakeh finished speaking, his words did not disappear into the air. They lingered, clinging to Jerusalem like an unwelcome shadow. On the rooftops, families exchanged troubled glances. Parents whispered uneasy questions they did not want their children to hear. Inside small stone homes, shutters closed quietly, as though the city were trying to hide from the message that had just reached it. A woman at her doorway asked her husband, "What if he's right?" A group of young men, once confident, now sat in silence, staring into the distance, wrestling with fear they never imagined they would feel. Some muttered that Hezekiah had made a grave mistake defying Assyria. Others said nothing, but their silence revealed more than words could. A few wondered whether God had truly abandoned them. They remembered the destroyed high places, the tension, the reforms, and they wondered what any of it meant now. Faint whispers passed across rooftops like scattered winds. Assyria never loses. No God has stopped them. What if Jerusalem is no different? Fear spread not with screams, but with quiet, sinking doubt. And that was exactly what Rabshakeh wanted. Below, the king's officials stood stiff, their faces drained. Eliakim swallowed hard. Shebna clenched his jaw. Joah looked down at his tablet, unable to record a single word more. They turned to the soldiers on the walls and gestured with their hands, slow, authoritative, unwavering. Say nothing. Answer him not a word. It was the one command Hezekiah had given before they left the palace. Silence. Total silence. And so Jerusalem, a city trembling inside, obeyed. No one shouted back. No one argued. No one defended their king or their God. The only voice that hung in the air was Rabshakeh's final threat. Eliakim finally nodded to the others. They turned away from the wall, robes brushing the stones, as they began their heavy walk back toward the palace. Not a single word passed between them. The weight of the moment pressed on all three like a burden they struggled to carry. As they walked, the murmur of a shaken city followed behind them, the sound of fear taking root. By the time they reached the palace gates, word had already begun to spread ahead of them. Servants could see it on their faces. Guards stepped aside with uneasy glances. The palace seemed quieter than usual, as though the walls themselves were listening. The moment Hezekiah saw their torn expressions, he needed no explanation. He did not ask for details. He did not demand reports. He did not request military assessments. He simply reached up and tore his own royal garments. The cloth split down the front, falling in ragged pieces at his feet, the ancient sign of deep anguish, humility, and mourning. He did not reach for a commander. He did not summon his generals. He did not call for maps, strategies, or counselors. Instead, he turned his face toward God. He wrapped himself in sackcloth, the garment of those who seek mercy, and walked straight into the temple of the Lord. No palace throne, no war council, no speeches. Just a king standing before the only one who could answer the voice that shook his nation. And this moment, quiet, raw, unseen by the crowds, becomes the doorway to the miracle that would soon follow. The temple courts were quiet when Hezekiah entered. Only a faint breeze moved through the pillars, carrying with it the distant hum of a city weighed down by fear. Hezekiah walked slowly, the rough texture of sackcloth scratching against his skin, a reminder of the humility he willingly embraced. Every step echoed softly across the stone floor, the sound of a king who came not as a ruler, but as a servant seeking help. He stopped near the inner court and lifted his face toward heaven. No crown, no armor, no royal entourage. Only a broken heart laid bare before God. In his hands he carried the message, the threat spoken so boldly by Rabshakeh. He held it up as though presenting evidence before a divine judge. He took a deep breath, and the words rose from the depths of his soul. "Incline your ear, O Lord, and hear." His voice trembled, not from despair, but from the weight of everything hanging on this moment. "Open your eyes, O Lord, and see the words Sennacherib has sent to mock the living God." The room held stillness, as though the temple itself was listening. Hezekiah's prayer was not crafted for beauty. It was raw, honest, heavy with emotion. He confessed their weakness. He acknowledged the power arrayed against them. He declared there was no hope apart from the one he stood before. No council of war could match this moment. No strategy could exceed what he asked for. With his head bowed low, he finished. "You alone are God. Deliver us, that all kingdoms may know." A king placed his nation in the hands of the Almighty and waited. While Hezekiah prayed in the temple, a message arrived from the one man whose voice still carried authority in a shaken kingdom, the prophet Isaiah. A messenger rushed through the palace corridors with urgency, his sandals slapping against the stone floors. He found the king's officials and delivered the words Isaiah had spoken the moment he heard Hezekiah's prayer. They hurried to the temple. Hezekiah lifted his head as the delegation entered, their expressions transformed not with fear, but with a glimmer of something long forgotten, hope. Eliakim stepped forward and read Isaiah's message aloud. "Thus says the Lord, do not be afraid of the words you have heard." The air shifted. Those simple words pushed back layers of fear that had settled over Jerusalem. The message continued, "I have heard your prayer." For the first time since Rabshakeh's arrival, Hezekiah's shoulders eased. The burden he carried alone was now lifted by hands far stronger than his own. Isaiah's prophecy grew bolder. "I will put a spirit in him. He will hear a rumor, and he will return to his own land." A reversal, a promise, a declaration that the enemy who boasted with certainty would soon retreat in confusion. But Isaiah was not finished. His last line struck with quiet authority. "I will cause his end to come in his own land." This was no ordinary reassurance. It was a divine verdict. The same voice that created the world had spoken, and Assyria's king with all his armies was no match for it. The turning point had begun. The miracle was on its way. Far from Jerusalem, deep within the Assyrian military network, unrest began to stir. Messengers arrived in Sennacherib's command tent, carrying news he never expected to hear at this stage of his conquest. Whispers of uprisings, reports of distant nations showing signs of rebellion. Trouble brewing along territories he believed were completely secure. These were not minor issues. They hinted at fractures within the empire, tiny cracks that could widen into something far more dangerous. Sennacherib's face hardened as he listened. He had come to Judah to demonstrate strength, not to deal with disruptions behind him. And now, the rumors carried urgency he could not ignore. But instead of returning immediately, he issued one command: hold the position, keep the pressure on Jerusalem. He believed his presence wasn't needed. He believed Jerusalem would fall soon enough. And so he left Rabshakeh's warnings hanging over the city like a storm cloud, convinced time alone would break their courage. But something else was moving in the night, something Sennacherib had not planned for, something behind the curtain of human strategy. The stage was set for a reversal no empire could stop. The camp of Assyria stretched across the hills, thousands upon thousands of tents, torches flickering in the darkness, the hum of soldiers settling into sleep after a day of waiting. Then, without sound, without footsteps, without any sign of earthly activity, something moved. Scripture does not detail how. It does not explain the manner, the shape, or the form. It simply tells us that in one night, an act of God swept through the Assyrian camp, quiet, decisive, and beyond any human power. No sword flashed, no army approached, no battle lines formed. Yet by morning, the army that had terrified nations could no longer rise, move, march, or threaten. Their strength was gone. Their campaign ended in a moment no strategist could have predicted. A single night changed the fate of Jerusalem. This was not human victory. This was not military triumph. This was intervention, the kind that reminds the world that some battles are settled by a hand greater than any king. As dawn crept across the hills, Sennacherib received word of what had happened to his forces. Shock rippled through the surviving command. This was not a setback, it was a collapse. Sennacherib, the king who had mocked Jerusalem's God, the king who had sent a voice to break their spirit, the king who believed no one could stop him, immediately abandoned the campaign. No threats, no final warnings, no declarations. He simply turned back toward Nineveh, carrying with him a silent understanding that something greater than Assyria had moved in the night. Back in Jerusalem, the city awoke slowly. People stepped outside their homes, expecting to hear drums, commands, or the clamor of a siege. They found only stillness. Soldiers on the walls leaned over, scanning the horizon. But the valley was empty. No torches, no banners, no Assyrian formations. Just silence, the kind that arrives after a storm passes without touching the city it surrounded. Word spread through Jerusalem like wildfire. They're gone, mothers cried with relief. Fathers exhaled deeply for the first time in days. Children asked, "What happened?" And the answer was whispered from rooftop to rooftop. The voice that threatened us is gone. The nation that trembled at a single man's words now stood in awe of the God who answered with a single night. In the days that followed, the impact of that single night began to unfold across the land. Assyria, the empire that devoured nations one after another, never returned to Jerusalem's gates. Not with negotiations, not with threats, not with armies. The road leading to the city remained empty. The hills stayed quiet. The horizon, once lined with Assyrian encampments, was now clear. For the first time in a long time, people in Jerusalem walked through their streets without glancing nervously toward the walls. The markets reopened. Music returned to the courtyards. Families lifted their voices in thanksgiving. And among the nations surrounding Judah, rumors began to travel. How did Jerusalem survive? What halted the army no kingdom could stop? How did a small city withstand the force that ruled the world? They had no explanation. But Jerusalem understood something profound. Their survival did not come from arrows, shields, or walls. It came from the moment one king chose to seek help from someone greater than himself. The people learned that faith endures even when fear tries to unravel it. Rabshakeh had aimed to break their confidence. He had used logic, intimidation, and the strength of Assyria to crush their hope, and yet it was not arguments that saved them. It was not counterattacks. It was not alliances. It was a prayer, a sincere plea from a humbled king who stood alone in a quiet temple and asked God to hear him. And heaven answered. Jerusalem discovered that intimidation may roar loudly, but faith, even when whispered, can stand longer than any threat. When the dust settled, Jerusalem still stood. Its walls remained unbroken. Its people remained in their homes. Its king remained on the throne. Hezekiah's leadership, once questioned by many, now gained new strength. Not because of political victory, not because of military achievement, but because he showed his people what it meant to rely on God when everything seemed lost. The nation that trembled had become the nation that witnessed a miracle. The city that braced for destruction became the city that lived to tell the story. And long after Assyria's empire faded into history, the memory of that day endured, a reminder etched into the heart of Jerusalem. The voice that tried to break them fell silent, but the God they trusted remained. As the dust of history settles and the echoes of Assyria's threat fade into silence, a deeper truth rises from the story, one that is as alive today as it was that night outside Jerusalem's walls. Because, when you look closely, this entire confrontation wasn't really about armies, strategies, or politics. It wasn't about Assyria's strength or Judah's weakness. It wasn't even about the walls of Jerusalem. It was about fear, the kind of fear that speaks loudly, confidently, relentlessly. The kind of fear that tells you your story is over, even when God has barely begun. And so the entire event narrows down to one timeless revelation. The loudest messenger of fear is often the very last barrier before God's breakthrough. Fear always shouts the most when it's about to lose. It fought with words because it was powerless against faith. It tried to break the city's spirit because it couldn't break the promise God made. And the miracle came not because Jerusalem had power, but because they refused to surrender their trust. This is the lesson hidden behind the miracle, behind the retreat, behind the silence at dawn. Sometimes the thing that scares you the most, the thing that feels immovable, the thing that tells you this is the end, is standing at the edge of its own defeat. And as you sit with this story, this moment where faith met fear and refused to bow, maybe something in your life echoes it. Maybe a voice has been telling you that you're surrounded, that you're outmatched, that your story is collapsing. But Jerusalem's dawn reminds you of something essential. Faith doesn't need the loudest voice, just the last one. So if you want more stories like this, stories hidden between chapters, stories where ordinary people met impossible odds, stories where God moved when no one expected it, consider subscribing. And there are so many more forgotten stories waiting to be uncovered.